In the standard practice of Vipassana meditation, the cardinal rule is strict, uncompromising non-interference. When you observe a sensation in the body, you maintain absolute equanimity, viewing the physical form simply as a vibrating mass of subatomic particles. This passive observational model was globalized in the late 20th century by S.N. Goenka, following his authorization by the Burmese master Khin. But Goenka wasn't the only Western-bound teacher authorized by Khin. There was another student, an aerospace engineer named Robert H. Hover. Hover presents a strange historical paradox. He utilized the exact same body scanning technology as Goenka, but he developed a mechanical rule set that explicitly breaks the core directive of passive observation. This diagram maps the exact point of the theoretical split. The Goenka lineage pursued a liberation model, aiming to eradicate mental impurities for the ultimate goal of nirvana. Hover's branch discarded that entirely, aiming the technique exclusively at physical and emotional healing. Hover took Khin's base premise, that the body is a continuum of changing matter, and ran it through an engineer's logic. He deduced that if the mind can passively observe this physical reality, it can also be weaponized to actively manipulate it. A meditator in the Goenka tradition treats a localized pain as a karmic imprint, to be observed without reaction until it dissolves. Hover reclassified that exact same pain as a literal physical substance occupying space in the body. He called this substance faint matter, a subtle material interpenetrating living tissue that acts as the root cause of physical and emotional blockages. This text outlines Hover's rigorous categorization of faint matter into structural densities. Lightly bound matter corresponds to phenomena like phobias or stress. Tightly bound matter represents denser accumulations, like severe tissue damage, requiring prolonged mechanical effort. To ensure his students treated this as a mechanical process, Hover stripped the spiritual vocabulary from his manual. Words like imagine, visualize, and even meditate are explicitly banned. In their place, he introduced the concept of internal touching. The practitioner uses their mind to empirically feel the exact shape, depth, and boundary of the faint matter without relying on imagination. By discarding the religious terminology and renaming these blockages to faint matter, Hover successfully reframed spiritual obstacles into literal mechanical structures awaiting demolition. So, what does a practitioner actually do when they hit an intense pain or a blind spot in the body? They invert the standard rules of the body scan. Instead of maintaining a continuous free flow of attention to avoid clinging to sensations, Hover instructs the practitioner to halt entirely and execute a process of investigative querying. The mind must lock on to the localized object and answer specific structural questions. Where are the exact boundaries? How deep does this pain penetrate? What is its three-dimensional geometry? Once the geometry is mapped, the primary destruction mechanism is deployed. Hover called this planing. The practitioner moves attention back and forth across the object, overshooting edges on each pass. This cognitive friction shears away layers of dense matter, like a carpenter planing wood. The sweep repeats continuously until reaching the bottom of the accumulation, completely leveling the blockage. This highly targeted work requires a different level of somatic energy than standard breath awareness. Before attempting localized planing, Hover sometimes instructed students to use aggressive bellows breathing, followed by broad, sweeping mental cleanouts of entire organ systems to charge the body's energy pathways. In this framework, the practitioner is no longer sitting back to witness the flow of reality. They are operating as a surgeon, actively excising tissue with their attention. But what happens when the faint matter is too dense, too localized, or too elusive to be planed away layer by layer? For these structural anomalies, Hover introduced the pushing technique. This diagram from his manual's cover illustrates how a mental push operates in physical space. The instruction is literal. The practitioner applies a volitional mental force against the subtle matter, directing it horizontally along a vector until it slips completely out of the body. Because this manipulation is treated as a physical intervention, Hover required a specific post-operative care routine, a gentle, loving internal massage to soothe the area that was just pushed. Hover's model redefined human attention. It was no longer a passive receiver of sensory data, but a physical force capable of generating actual kinetic displacement inside the body. This mechanical toolkit is not restricted to physical joint pain or tissue damage. It is also deployed against diffuse emotional phenomena. Under this system, severe anxiety and fear are categorized simply as lightly bound faint matter. They are subject to the exact same rules of physical space as a sprained ankle. In advanced meditation, practitioners often hit the third Vipassana jhana, a stage characterized by intense, free-floating terror and paranoia, known as the dark night. A traditional teacher will instruct a student to passively endure this stage, observing the terror without identifying with it. Hover's instruction is to mechanically attack it. The meditator locates the specific somatic footprint of the dread, like a heavy pressure in the chest or a knot in the stomach, and begins planing it down. We see a modern parallel to this active spatial disruption in the pragmatic Dharma movement, specifically in the methods taught by Daniel Ingram. Ingram teaches the spinning swords, where the practitioner imagines twin blades volitionally slicing through the body's space to dismantle the illusion of a solid self. This kind of active spatial disruption works by forcing the brain to interact with its internal environment dynamically. Instead of contracting into a state of frozen terror, the nervous system engages in a task. Under Hover's active model, fear is demystified. It ceases to be an overwhelming psychological terror and becomes a simple structural anomaly awaiting demolition. Hover's methodology represents a complete break from Theravada orthodoxy, achieved by removing the pursuit of nirvana from the practice entirely. This text documents his definitive stance on his system's independence from Buddhism, explicitly noting that internal moving healing is a fundamental, standalone field, not a subclass of any religious dogma. He took the ancient technology of the Vipassana sweep and optimized it exclusively for biological and psychological utility. This weaves a potent, heterodox challenge for any advanced practitioner of traditional body scanning. If the subatomic particles of the body react to passive observation, what are the physiological limits when observation becomes surgical intervention? Investigating this requires zero belief system. It requires only rigorous mechanical repetition. The Khin sweep, when decoupled from the dogma of equanimity, stands as one of the most precise clinical tools of somatic manipulation ever designed.